We started our engagement hangout at the shopping mall. We walked through the urban council hall chatting like close folks that had known each other for decades. We did some decent romantic things together. If my heart was not made of the devil, still I would have fallen in love with him. Being too close to someone for a long time could stir emotions. We even made Pastor Raymond aware, though he was also the devil in disguise. But I knew where I was heading to. We had dated for 6 months and church elders were aware. Most of them encouraged us because we were like birds of the same feather. After the smooth winds had blown for long, I decided to set the storm. I decided to bring him to be submissive to me through the passion he felt for me. His affection had grown so strong, and I knew it would be hard for him to deny my opinion. I had gotten his heart, it was time to get his soul. Pastor Jaika, here I come to get you at all cost. Jenny never lost the war. I muttered with a grin on my face. That evening I called on him that I was not feeling fine. He rushed to my place still wearing his pajamas. "What is the matter, my darling?" His sober voice woke up the pretending beast in me. "I have nerves, I am depressed. I met the doctor and he told me I needed to release myself from some emotional stress." "Are you into an emotional trauma? Did someone break your heart?" He was worried, but I had already planned on how to get him. During counseling, he asked me if I was married. I said no. He asked me if I have been fighting with my feelings, struggling to suppress my urges, like sex, anger or hurt. I reported that it was just the fact that I am a Christian and I must only have sex after our wedding. So he told me that if I wanted to release myself from depression, I should be able to express myself emotionally, so as to feel ventilated on my mind. "Did he not give you some drugs for that?" He was still curious, I responded. "The doctor's report said I must be having sex, if not it can lead to a stroke or a heart attack or even serious brain trauma. That can lead to paralysis or surgery." He exclaimed and added, "Are you serious? It is a medical fact." I presented him the medical report I had framed with a specialist. He looked at it keenly, reading through the lines. When he had finished reading, he asked, "So what do we do?" "I need you to touch me, let me feel you. I don't want to die of depression. We will be getting married soon, so God will understand soon. Let us not give the devil a little chance to destroy us. This is too good to be true." He complained, but I had to prove him wrong. "You are doing this to save my life. It is your obligation. But we are not married yet. We have just a month to be husband and wife. But by then I will be dead of stress and depression. Sorry darling, I cannot do that. Think of all this wealth, all the cars and estates I own, it will be yours so soon. But if you deny me of the doctor's instructions, I will call off the wedding." "What?" He was shocked, but I made it clear to him. "Leave my house if you don't do this for me. I have been doing all for your happiness, just this one thing for me, you are selfish. I never want to set my eyes on you and know it is over." I called off the wedding and our relationship stopped. He lost everything I offered him and the good life. Though he looked heartbroken, he didn't show any signs of remorsefulness or even attempted to come back to me. I allowed him to wallow in penury and poverty, but he proved to me that he was not a spiritual poltroon. I was bitter within me and decided to turn to plan B. I was going to accuse him of attempting to rape me, so that he was going to be expelled from the New Life Salvation Church. I had never been defeated, so I had to accuse him of raping me, so that he would be sent away. That was the only way I could control the church without him obstructing me. One day after Tuesday evening service, he stormed before me and confronted me. "Are you aware of the fact that the Bible says, if your eye causes you to sin, you pluck it off, because it is better to enter heaven with one eye than to go to hell with all your eyes? Are you calling me a sinner or temptation?" I queried, and he said gently, "No. Your flesh is the problem, resist your flesh." I met a doctor and he said, to fight depression, you need to do some physical exercises, watch some funny movies and read interesting books. He said it is easy for women than men. Go to hell with your stupid doctor's advice. If you don't do what I asked you, doom awaits you. Only God will decide whether I go to hell or not. He denied my proposal and turned me down. I couldn't accept to be humiliated. I had to go to plan B. This time God was never going to save his ass. If the pastor resisted to have sex with me, I was going to rape him or make him do it without having a choice. But if that couldn't hold, I was going to blackmail him. My malice was from the fact that I had sold my conscience to the devil. In our cult we are so spiteful and have no pity. I decided to invite Pastor Jaika over to my place so as to carry on my plot. For the first time in my life I saw him wear jeans, so I thought he wanted to be sexy for me. I mixed my usual substance in his fruit juice. I pretended I wanted us to reconcile. Hello Pastor, you have proven to be a strong man. I love your guts, don't blame me, it was my doctor that misled me. After drinking my fruit juice, he dozed off. I decided to remove his trousers, pants and undergarments. But to my dismay he had read my actions. I wanted to take a picture of him naked. He was a well-built gentleman, but just to remove his jeans was hard. When I took half an hour to take off his trouser, I got discouraged. Then I found out that he had worn another slim hard jeans inside. It was difficult to undress him then. I tried to use a blade to tear it off, but I couldn't do it without injuring him. I only successfully took off his singlets and shirt. I had to give up, and when he got up from his profound sleep looking tipsy, he smiled at me and said, I knew you were up to something, the Bible tells me to be crafty like a serpent. I was furious and speechless, feeling so ashamed. I went to Pastor Raymond and framed him up. I lied that he tried to rape me. When Jaika stormed the church premises not even looking nervous, he denied the accusations. The devil is a liar, she is trying to frame me up. I am innocent. He denied the accusations, but I insisted we should take the case to the church council meeting. I knew it was dominated by my cult members and Pastor Raymond was with us. I knew he was going to be disgraced and dismissed from pastorship. I was asked to explain what happened. He came to my house and when we were eating he drugged me. After I slept off, he raped me. How did you know he raped you? Pastor Ray inquired and I laid my allegation. I heard him bound me, penetrating my body, but I was weak. I am a woman of valor and wealth and cannot tell lies. Now Pastor Jaika, a church elder, called my attention. What do you have to say about this? I couldn't have slept with her because I slept off myself. I got up with my trousers on, but someone had tried to remove them, but the ones inside were too tight. She invited me over to her place. Maybe she had sex with a spiritual husband in her dreams. People started giggling in laughter and it made mockery of me. I lost my self-esteem before everyone and His grace saved him because he was bold enough, ready to prove it anywhere that it was a lie. How can a man rape a woman with his jeans trousers on? It is absurd. You need to prove this your falsehood, Lady Jennifer. The fact you contribute immensely for the financial upkeep of this church don't mean you must have all you want. We need spiritual upbringing, and if it continue I will just have to quit this church. He threatened, but Pastor Raymond pleaded. There is no need for that. Maybe it was a spiritual husband that raped you, because you said you were asleep after being drugged. He was liberated after the verdict. Of all my accusations, I was full of wrath that my rage swore for vengeance as I confronted Pastor Raymond. What was the meaning of that? I thought you would use it as a ploy to expel him from this church. He is a mountain standing on our way. We cannot remove the mountain by tarnishing the reputation of our church. He is a pronounced pastor in this congregation and it will not be smooth for our image. Public opinion counts and the future of New Life Salvation Church. I understand you now, but that is just the beginning of his downfall. If I don't let him fall by flesh, then he will fall by the sword. I meant every word I said. We in the kingdom of darkness, we never give up. My plan A and B had failed, but I was going to exercise right up to plan Z till I got what I wanted. It was no longer an assignment from the court, it had also become personal. My pride was at stake. It was a Sunday service in the New Life Salvation Church. The choir was amazing with the administration that followed the rite of bread and wine sharing. Pastor Jaika was the one that presided on the full service that day. His preaching was mainly on blackmail and money that has bought the conscience of most Christians. He took the topic from the passage where Judas sold Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. I felt like he was talking to me. If I had destroyed him, he wouldn't have been standing there pouring such rubbish. After sharing the body and blood of Christ through bread and wine, there was a time for testimonies. After testimonies, when the announcement was about to be made, Lemka, the 16-years-only daughter of Don Ziru and wife Mrs. Regina Ziru, collapsed in the church, spilling out some bubbles of spittle like soaping watery balls from her mouth. When she was rushed to the closest hospital, a few minutes later she was reported dead. Pastor Jaika stood on the altar and announced, "No one should leave the church. The doctor's report states that the child was poisoned just some few minutes ago." The police detective is on his way to check the crime scene before anyone quit the church service. There was a crowded murmur of the church mob, but the ushers were asked to lock all the church outlets and switched on the fans. Mrs. Regina Ziru was sobbing right at the front bench where church elders were sitting. Her husband was out of town and he called threatening to deal with the murderer. A few minutes later, Inspector Javran stormed into the church and was shown where Lemka was standing before she collapsed. All the small glass cups which the wine was shared were still standing in the church close to the choir. The inspector tested all the cups by pouring a chemical substance to find out which one contained the poison. He finally found the tiny glass cup and picked it up, saying, "Strychnine was detected in this glass by using chromatography nitrogen phosphorus, the substance that was used to poison the victim, usually found in rat poison." After revealing that, Inspector Javran asked if those were all the cups used during the Lord's Supper, and he was directed at the altar. He checked on the glasses and found out that the same substance was found in the celebrant's glass, but he was not dead. He stood up and asked for all those who participated in carrying the wine to the altar before blessing, especially those who partook in its sharing. All the ushers were suspects, especially the one who shared at the row where the victim was found. Pastor Jaika was the major suspect and Sister Goodness was another prime suspect because she shared the wine at the victim's desk. But the major suspect was Pastor Jaika because the toxins were found in his own cup, but he tested negative of the deadly poison. The chaos in the church was dismissed as the two prime suspects were arrested and taken to the police station. When the rest of the congregation retired home, the major actors concerning the murder scene stayed back. They included Mrs. Regina Ziru, the mother of Lemka the victim, Pastor Raymond who had returned, some ushers, and two suspects were Pastor Jaika and Sister Goodness. Whosoever murdered Lemka, the daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Don Ziru, had touched the tiger's tail. The father was an influential billionaire and was not going to take it easy. I was confused myself. For the first time in my life, I was scared. I was afraid of the unforeseen. I was one of the leaders in the church and knew the reputation of Don Ziru. Who murdered Lemka? Was it a way of destroying our church? It was probably our enemies who wanted to destroy our church that had gained grounds. But it was time for me to play my cards. When Pastor Jaika was released after 24 hours, I came to him and tried to lure him. From every indication, you are the prime suspect, and I'm the only one who can use my influence to clear your head. Just accept to sleep with me and I will buy your guilt and make you innocent. Let it not be that I was blackmailed by any slanderous fellow. God is my shepherd. When I noticed that his accusations could point at me, because I was his enemy, it made me quit. From that moment I decided to stay away from him. Everyone wondered, who murdered Lemka. Though all proofs were incriminating Pastor Jaika, 99% of church congratulation said he was not capable of hurting a fly. But Inspector Javran summoned the church elders and wailed in fury. Who killed that innocent child during the church service? I must get to the root of this devilish act. The investigations were still going on seriously. Investigations were going on. It was said that during sharing of the wine, Sister Goodness complained to the pastor that one person at her row was not having wine. The pastor had not drunk his own wine. It was non-alcoholic wine, so the pastor emptied his cup in the extra glass. When Sister Goodness shared it, the unfortunate one was Lemka, who became the victim. It means the only cups that had strychnine was the pastor's cup. But due to his kindness, he sacrificed his cup of wine for his Christian who didn't have. Who wanted to poison Pastor Jaika. When I heard that, I felt guilty, but I was innocent. I knew I did not bargain for any murder. After the investigation, it was found out that the bottle of wine was void of the traces of the deadly toxins. Could it be that rat poison was accidentally poured into the pastor's cup? But it was found out that there were no rats in church and no one had intention of bringing rat poison. But it was an outstanding fact that it was the first time in the history of New Life Salvation Church that a junior pastor had ever presided over the Eucharistic service in such a grandiose event. Someone knew something about it, but Pastor Raymond was invited out of time that Sunday for evangelization and he could not deny. Then it meant someone was aware who was going to preside over the Eucharistic service and wanted to kill Pastor Jaika. Who could had intentions of poisoning Jaika? I was the only one, but he never called my name. It was later found out that drops of strychnine were detected on the ground in front of the cupboard where the Eucharistic utensils were kept, including the pastor's glass. What the inspector needed was to prove whether it was dropped in the cup when it was collected from cupboard or before that day. Then the two prime suspects were those who had the key to that cupboard and the person who took the cups to the altar that Sunday. But it was proven that the substance was found under the shoes of Brother Martins when he trampled during the time he took the utensils. And more to that, he could not have successfully added the powder without washing his hands. But it was said that the entire church was scrubbed on Saturday evening, and if the toxin was found on the floor, it meant it was that morning, because those cups were washed 2 hours before service and left at the cupboard. The only one left in the church before service and had access to the key of the cupboard was no other person but Pastor Raymond's niece. And it could not be her, but the inspector asked her, where was the key? It is found among the bunch of keys for the church doors. Did anyone request for the key 2 hours earlier that day, or did you leave the key somewhere anyone could have access to it? No, she said, but the inspector insisted. Then who did it, if you were the last one with the keys? Brother Hilary took the bunch of keys from me to find out if there were still batteries for the microphones. The niece gave a clue and the inspector was curious. Was it the first time he checked before service? Is he the band coordinator and is he the one to verify such issues concerning the band? No. It was his very first time to do that, and he is not in charge. I want to see the band coordinator. The inspector ordered, and when the one in charge came, the inspector inquired. That Sunday, when you checked into the trunk, did you find out anyone had verified the batteries in the trunk? No, sir. We don't keep the batteries in the trunk, they are always kept in my possession. And everyone is aware. Where is Brother Hilary? The inspector was restless. Sir, he told me he will be traveling this evening. The band coordinator revealed, and the inspector jumped up. Take me to his house now, he wants to run away. The inspector rushed out with the band coordinator in his car and headed straight to Brother Hilary's residence. The inspector returned from the suspect's house looking disappointed. Brother Hilary was found dead in his room. The inspector presumed with concrete explanations. Unfortunately, we found him dead of the same poison. It looked like he committed suicide by drinking the same poison that killed the innocent child. But what was strange is, I found a glass of juice on his table with traces of strychnine. I think he was murdered and made to look like suicide. His door was not bolted, and though he was found dead of toxins. If he sat on the table and drank the poison, he won't have died lying on the floor helpless, looking terrified like he was strangled. On his pillow we found his spittle mixed with the poisonous substance. The pillow was used to suffocate him and stop him from yelling in agony. He did one head struggling to save himself. There was no bottle of the fruit juice he drank, and we couldn't find any traces of toxic powder in his room. The muddy footprints found on his floor shows that someone struggled with him. He left his shoe outside and the shoe prints found on the floor were not his. Someone was trying to silence him. The inspector turned to Brother Lemlo, the band coordinator, and made inquiries. When Hilary called you that he was traveling, how did he sound, calm or was he hasty, and what precisely did he say? He told me he had to leave the town by evening, that I should look for someone to replace him as the lead vocalist. When I asked him why was he in haste to leave, while he was supposed to be the main singer during praise worship night, he said, I am feeling unsecured now and no one will believe me. Before things turn out bad, I better be on safe side. That was what he said. He was probably under pressure when he administered the poison. Sister Goodness, was he with anyone when he collected the key from you? Yes, sir. She responded to the inspector, and he was curious. Who was he with? Did you recognize him? There was a huge tall dark man wearing a hat, putting on black suit with him. The man followed him to the room. When he came back to hand the keys, I asked him, who is he? He is a friend. When he replied, I noticed he was timid. Then he went towards the exit and the man followed him behind closely. I have never seen the man before. Brother Hilary never attended church service that Sunday, I presume. Yes, sir. The inspector got confirmation to his puzzle, as he wanted to confirm again. From that day has he been seen in church? No, sir. This is a hard nut to crack, and the killer is a professional. Brother Hilary was under pressure when he administered the poison. That was why it dropped on the floor. Maybe he didn't know it was poison. I need to find the guy who entered his room last night. It is the same guy. I checked all his calls and messages and he was not in contact with any strange number. One last question, how was he dressed? Was he dressed like he was ready for church that morning? No, sir, he was with slippers and a casual wear. Sister Goodness notified, while the inspector concluded. If Hilary plotted the murder, he won't had not absent from church, he won't had hastily collected the key knowing he was going to commit grave act. He was trapped into it. I need to go back to his room. The inspector rushed out just to be seen after 2 days when he came to investigate. I knew I was going to be a suspect ever since I tried to blackmail Pastor Jaika. The inspector was furious at me. Lady Jennifer, I learned from sure sources that you had a misconception about Pastor Jaika. That the two of you are not in good terms. You were his girlfriend and you people were about to get married, but you break up. He personally confided in me that you indirectly threatened him. I am also aware that you are part of those who knew Pastor Jaika was going to preside on the Sunday communion service that Sunday. Is all that true? Yes, Inspector. Then tell me, why someone will want to kill Pastor Jaika? The inspector was stern at me, but I had no answer rather than responded. I don't have an idea. Can I see your phone gallery, madam? He took my phone and zapped through it, and after going through it, he asked me. I just found out that Mrs. Regina Zero wrote you a message on WhatsApp to ask if you had Brother Hilary's number or someone who had it. You responded no. Yes, it was on Friday. What relationship do you have with Mrs. Regina Zero? We are close friends and members of the church financial committee. That will be all, madam. The inspector left instantly without uttering any word. But why was she asking for Hilary's number 2 days before the tragic incident? But it was impossible for Mrs. Regina Ziru to have a hand in it. But after all, could she hire someone to poison Pastor Jaika? But she could not be responsible for her only daughter's death. I was the one who said I must destroy Pastor Jaika by having sex with him. But my plan B to Z did not include killing him. Whoever did this was probably trying to soil my name with blood. I knew someone was trying to taint my name. I was anxiously waiting for Inspector Javran to get to the root of the matter. 2 people were already dead due to church issues. I started feeling remorseful, but as a cult member I didn't have to show that I felt pity for Pastor Jaika or anyone I was out to destroy. My wealth was aimed at destroying souls and stopping them from reaching heaven. If I was lending a helping hand to anyone on earth, it was purposely to drag his soul to perdition. Later during the week, the inspector issued a warrant of arrest for Mrs. Regina Ziru and I. Some police officers came to the church during the elders' meeting and arrested the 2 of us. The 2 of you are under arrest for the attempted murder of Pastor Jaika and murder of Brother Hilary and Lemka. I was shocked when we were escorted to the police car. We were driven swiftly to the police station. I called my lawyer immediately. Even Mrs. Regina Ziru's lawyer was there in less time. The inspector locked me in an interrogation room and brutalized me with his inquiry. During my one-on-one talk with the victim's mom, I learned that during a discussion with her, you said you were furious against Pastor Jaika for turning you down. You respected his Christian obligation as a pastor of no sex before marriage, but you insisted you wanted him. The pastor also made it clear that you showed him a medical report stating that to cure your depression you needed sex from him. Is he the only man on earth? Tell me why you poured your rage on him and wanted him dead at all cost. I never wished for his death, I exclaimed, but the inspector whacked on the desk wailing at me. But Mrs. Regina confided in me that you told him a week ago that you wanted Pastor Jaika out of the way at all cost. I didn't mean his death, I just wanted him to be excommunicated from the church through blackmail. But how did you intend to blackmail him? By painting his name black, since he didn't fall for my seduction, and after failing to slander him of raping me, I was trying to invite him to my house and accuse him of stealing my money, of which I was to send someone to hide the money in his house, so that during the search he would be seen as a thief. What an act of vengeance! But who must have tried to poison him then? If you don't speak out, the culprit will be you. You are the only one who had reasons to kill him. I was shuddering like a chick in the rain. In my chaos, I panicked. I remember when I told Mrs. Regina Ziru that I wanted the pastor out of the way, she said, "I will see what to do. That guy feels he is Jesus and has tried to always counteract us when we make decisions about the church, especially when it has to do with our reputation. All he cares about is the fate of those Christians who cannot afford to pay tithes. That their souls are important, that was our opinion." I see. The inspector noted and nodded his head saying, "It means Pastor Jaika has been trying to protect the integrity of the less privileged Christians, and most of you on the council are against him, including Pastor Raymond." Yes. I agreed, because I also knew I didn't hire anyone to kill him, so I needed to give out every clue for the real culprit to be booked, as to save my head from jail. I knew even if I saved my soul from jail, I was not going to be saved from hell. In my profound thoughts, the inspector interjected my mind by stating, "I see all of you in the financial committee, including Pastor Raymond, are having grudges against a genuine man of God. Now tell me, you just said you wanted to pay someone to infiltrate into Pastor Jaika's house to place the money you will accuse him of stealing in his house, is that right?" Yes. I didn't know why he brought back the issue of plotted blackmail, but he was a wise man when he inquired. "It means you had someone in mind who could do the dirty job for you." "Yes, Inspector." "Give me his name, number and address." "I only have his number, sir." "Let me have it." Immediately I handed him the number of the guy I ever hired to storm my house and force Pastor Raymond to sleep with me. He said to me, "This guy must be arrested within 12 hours, you'll help us to arrest him yourself." Let me have your phone. From that moment I knew the secret of which I destroyed the fate of Pastor Raymond was at stake. But all I was sure of was that I did not hire my hitman to kill Pastor Jaika. Though I knew it was Mrs. Regina Dziru that ever gave me his number, to contact him for the bad boy job.